one more lecture, very important lecture. Actually, last time in November, I guess I was in Delhi for a conference. So, Madam delivered a lecture over there. So, that time only I decided that I had contacted Madam and will get her here for the lecture because it was so brilliant. That lecture was very brilliant. So, we have with us Rituja basu ma'am. She is a program head, food loss and waste at Raviara, India. She has 15 years of work experience across diversified sectors including food systems, agriculture, logistics and infrastructure. Her core competencies are around program management, evidence-based policy research, and consultancy across public and private segments. She holds a master's in economics from Jawaharlal Nehru University, Delhi, and in priority roles has worked with the Food and Agriculture Center of Excellence, Confederation of Indian Industry (CII), and India Infrastructure Research. Her work has allowed her to work with leading government officials across central and states, industrialists, global thought leaders, farmer families, Anganwadi workers, traders, and other stakeholders who make this complex food value chain network. So this is going to be a really, really great lecture, and I request you all participants to interact with the madam so that you can get an opportunities, how to move ahead. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Good morning. It's lovely to be here with all of you. I would like to keep this more in it. So please stop me anywhere that you have questions. I would like to have more of a discussion. So the topic I thought of to speak about today is food waste in relation to the Sustainable Development Goals. So to start with, what is the difference between what is food waste? Can somebody tell me what food waste is? Anybody?
That is usually generated after we process the food and which is not used or which has not any utilization till now. So we can say it is a waste.
Correct. And what is food loss?
When it is basically it is not providing to the consumers or it is not giving any benefits to the consumers, and before we have it gets wasted.
Right. So food loss and food waste are often used as synonyms in India, but that is not correct. Food loss and food waste are very different things. So, so what is food loss? Food loss is what in India we call post-harvest loss. So which means losses that are happening post-harvest, not pre-harvest losses. For example, if apples are not ripening because of rain while it's on the tree, that's not post-harvest loss. That's agricultural loss, which then needs to be looked at by good agricultural practices. Post-harvest loss is something that starts post the point of harvesting. It can be due to wrong practices of packaging, wrong picking practices. It can be sorting and grading issues. It can be losses at the mandi or market level. It can be losses at the transport level when it's transporting from the mandi to the retail market, right up till it goes in the hands of the consumer. Whenever it comes to the hands of the consumer, which is us, whatever we waste in food, that's food waste. Whatever a hotel or a restaurant wastes is food waste. Whatever a bulk retailer, say this university mess, whatever is left at the end of a meal, that's food waste. Why is it critical to understand the difference between the two? Because the stakeholders whom we need to train to reduce is very different. So food loss has a separate set of stakeholders, food waste has a separate set of stakeholders. So if you see, within food waste also, there is consumer level food waste, which is household level, which is at the hotel and horeca segment, and there is wholesale and retail level food waste. So in India, there has been a lot of significant research on food loss, but on food waste, it's quite new. It's a segment that has just started getting attention, and it is getting all the right kind of attention. The government is speaking about it. We recently had the G20, which was hosted by India last year. Food waste was a key topic that was discussed there. So it's very exciting that finally the world is trying to understand that food waste is a problem. So what are the stakeholders? Just like I said, food loss happens near the farm, in transit, or during food processing. And food waste happens in stores and restaurants and retail. Is there a picture? Thank you. Or at home. Are there any questions up to this point? So why is it so important to talk about food loss and food waste? Globally, you must have heard that 1/3 of all the food we are producing is either lost or wasted. In terms of nutrition and calorie values, 24% of nutrition world over is wasted. Calories is wasted. 24% of calories is wasted. If we look at it in terms of the environment, what does that mean? If you are wasting 1/3 of what we produce, we are also wasting 1/3 of all the inputs that go into producing it. So 1/3 of all the fresh water that we are using. Right now, water is a huge crisis globally, is wasted. 1/3 of the fertilizer, 1/3 of all of the nutrients that we put in are wasted. And if we look at it in terms of the land, if we just think that all of agriculture is produced together, okay, and 1/3 of that is wasted. How much is that land parcel? It's the size of China. So imagine China is producing food in every square inch of the nation, and all that food is down the drain. That's how critical it is. If we talk about it in economic terms, in the US, on an average, a family of 4 wastes $1,500 worth of food annually, which is around 12.3 lakh rupees worth of food annually per family in 1 year. So, if we reduce food loss and food waste, we can actually impact 3 things. So, it's called a triple win. We impact the economy, we impact food security, and of course the environment. Because food waste is also a great big source of greenhouse gas emissions. So now, what are sustainable development goals? Are you all aware of what sustainable development goals are? So, food waste and food loss linked to several sustainable development goals. I have put up all the goals up there. Can you identify which ones are impacted if we reduce food loss or food waste? Which one will be hit? Sorry? Which one? It's okay. Second one. Zero hunger, correct? More? 12. Good health and well-being. Great. More?
7th one is
Affordable and clean energy. Yes. In indirect terms, if we convert food waste to energy, then yes. More?
obviously 13.
Climate action, correct? Anything else?
To some extent, no poverty.
No poverty to some extent. How are we linking to no poverty?
When we will valorize the waste, it will obviously give opportunities for the employment or entrepreneurship in that way.
In that way, it also hits industry, innovation and infrastructure, right? It hits 9. No poverty, it hits if farmer doesn't lose the money throwing away the product. If you see tomato is thrown away, onion is thrown away, there are these price categories and the cyclical nature. If you don't waste that, the farmer income increases, which is 60% of the Indian population, hence it's no poverty, right? What else?
Even 14 will be
Life below water?
yes.
It's a stretch, but yeah, it's a stretch. But yeah.
And
12, which is responsible consumption and production. Yes. It hits 11, sustainable cities and communities. Right? So, it hits 1, 2, 3. It kind of hits 5 as well. It hits 7. It hits 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. how many SDGs can we impact if we just work on food loss and food waste and to reduce it? So, in terms of meeting sustainable development goals, reducing food loss and food waste is intrinsic towards meeting several of the sustainable goals. And that is one of the key reasons that it is getting the attention that it is globally as well as nationally. As I understand, most of you are entrepreneurs or you hope to be entrepreneurs in the future. If you just think of funding, the venture capitalists and all the funding that is there right now, the seed funding, sustainability is a key hook. If you can link your funding proposal along with your economic model with sustainable development goals, it just helps you get a better leverage. And there is also funding available under the government for several of these. So this is just a bit more explained. Under SDG 12, there is SDG 12.3, which is a direct hit on reducing food loss and food waste. It talks about by 2023, the world needs to halve the per capita global food waste at the retail and consumer level and reduce food losses along the production and supply chains. And if we talk about the SDGs, SDG 1, how is it hitting? If we reduce losses, it means that the farmer has more food available for the market as well as to feed themselves. That's SDG 1, which is no poverty. And SDG 2, zero hunger. Zero hunger is also hit by improving storage and handling facilities to help smoothen the seasonal shortfalls. Right? So if we have a better supply chain model, then it also gives year-long availability of fresh fruits and vegetables and higher nutrition, and then leads to zero hunger. Good health, because not only quantity but quality losses of food are also critical towards good health. If we talk about education and gender equality, this is a stretch, but as I was saying, so if the household spends less on food, it has more to spend on education and on other aspects, health and all of those. Clean water and sanitation, better utilization of food is reducing the pressure on the water levels. Decent work and economic growth, the farmer income and prosperity can be increased when they reduce on-farm losses and thereby they are able to sell more food to the market. It definitely hits sustainable cities and communities as it can reduce food waste into the landfill, which is a huge source of GHG emissions. Sustainable consumption and production, because meeting the food loss and food waste reduction target would improve the sustainability of food consumption and production. Yesterday Mr. Pawan Agarwal was here, he must have spoken about food system transformation, which is looking at how do we feed the growing world, which is the population is expected to double in the next 50 years. How do we feed them sustainably without depriving the earth of its resources? So reducing what we are already wasting is a direct way. Along with that, of course, there are several other things that need to be done, but this is a direct way that we can hit. Climate action, again linked to greenhouse gas emissions, life underwater. Reducing food loss at sea means reducing bycatch. So if we reduce losses of fisheries, then it also reduces the intensive marining practices. So what is the scale of food loss in India? As I mentioned, food loss is something that has still been researched in India well. We have a national level study which is done every couple of years by ICR and with NAPCONs. So this is their 2022 study where they looked at 54 crops and commodities including horticulture, cereals and spices. The coverage included farm level operations, market channel, they looked at the storage and processing practices. They actually looked at a measure method where they quantifiably measured the food that is being lost. And they found that the highest losses are in fruits, followed by vegetables, followed by cereals, pulses, oilseeds, and then plantation crops and sugarcane. What is something that hits just out of this finding? If you see, we are wasting things that are highest in nutrition. Fruits, vegetables, cereals, and then pulses, oilseeds, and sugarcane for sugar, which is basically a tastemaker, right? Along with some calorific values. So that's the state in India right now. And why is this happening? Losses, I will be talking about waste mainly today, but just because we are here. And why is that happening? Because of perishability. Fruits and vegetables need temperature, are much more perishable in nature compared to cereals or oilseeds. So there is a huge gap in supply chain. We are huge producers. We have enough and more to feed, but we are also a humongous country. So most of the fruits and vegetables may not be produced. So the vegetables produced in West Bengal, how do they travel to Kashmir? The pineapple that is there in Northeast, how does it come to Delhi? So all of those things need to be looked at. There are huge gaps. I'm sure there are other lectures which focus on loss and sustainability in the supply chain. Our topic does not delve too much into that. However, if there are questions later on, I'll be happy to take it. So what were the suggested interventions that the government spoke about? Good agricultural practices, obviously. Focus on agricultural technology. So if we can have more of forecasting, if we can have demand-led production, if we can add value through processing, which also increases shelf life, right? So if we have, say, tomatoes that are going to waste, what if we sun-dry them or dehydrate them? A, it increases the market value, B, it increases the shelf life, right? And of course, we have to strengthen our cold chain infrastructure, not cold storage, the entire cold chain. There are several cold stores where it is stored, but as soon as you take it out of that temperature and you bring it to a normal temperature, it starts degrading. So the cold chain needs to be end to end. Now if we talk about food waste in India, there has hardly been any studies. If you look at the recent UNEP report that came out in 2021, that was a global report. Even there, they found only 3 studies on food waste that were done, 3 or 4 in India, and those are also very city specific. I think some looked at Dehradun, some looked at one southern city, but that's it's very difficult to consider that and then extrapolate it to pan India. It may not be giving the right kind of visibility. There was one other study that was done recently, which looked at household level food waste that covered 12 cities. I was also a part of that, Mr. Agarwal was also a part of that. So we looked at 12 cities, metros and non-metros, and this was a household level food waste study, which was looked at on a call and recall method, where it was a survey process and interview. And what we saw is 52 billion worth of food is wasted in urban India. 52 billion rupees per year. सिर्फ अपने घर पे, हम तो hotels और restaurants गए भी नहीं. We are not even talking about like the loss that happens at the retail level or the horeca level. This is only at the household level in these cities, and then we extrapolate it. But just look at the amount of money that is down the drain, which is edible food. Hence, we acknowledge that it is a problem. Food waste is a huge problem, right? How do we remedy that? This is called a food waste pyramid, with top to bottom being the most preferred way of reducing food waste to the least preferred way. What is the most preferred way to reduce food waste? Don't waste. Stop at source. Karo hi mat. Try to reduce the food. So how can that be done? A, if we all right now in the room today pledge, can on our plates, we will not waste food. Okay? That's one way. We work with restaurants and hotels to make them more aware of how much food waste is and how can we reduce it. And there are several innovative ideas that are coming up. There are these amazing chefs who are coming up with ideas for newer recipes with food that is usually wasted. Especially these, if you look at these 5 stars or these Michelin star restaurants, they also use very specific cuts, right? They leave the rest of the meat. They just need one specific part because it needs to look beautiful. The food needs to look beautiful. We have to to stop thinking about food as beautiful. Food is for energy, food is for our survival, food is for taste. It doesn't need to look pretty. In fact, you should think the prettier the food, there is more of pesticides. If a banana is yellow and perfect and a banana is a little bit blackish, doesn't make a difference. It makes a difference to the look, but nothing else. So if we teach our kids in school, it's usually children, right? It's black banana, nahi khana, like those kind of things. If you start teaching them at schools that food waste, and this was something that was there in India forever. I mean, our parents and grandparents have always told us, don't waste food, food is God, food is something that we shouldn't be wasting, all of that, but somewhere we have lost track. So of course the best way is don't waste. But that's not always possible. What's the second best option? Reroute it to feed the hungry. You can't eat it, give it to somebody else. Food donation. That can be in 2 or 3 ways. Household level, we always do it. If there's something we want to give to our house help or somebody else, we do. There are temples and mosques who also run these kind of, they feed the hungry. But there's a difference. If you are cooking food to feed the hungry, that's not reducing food waste. You're doing something noble, you're reducing hunger, but you're not reducing waste. Waste is if the food is ready, you can't eat it, what are you doing? So food donation is a way we can reduce it. There are some challenges we'll come to that. What's the second? After that, the third. Feed the animals. What you can't eat, feed the animals. Food waste valorization, innovation can come in to feed people through innovative practices. We come to that. It can definitely come in to feed animals. Of course, char roti bach gaya, we gave it to a dog, that's also something. But we can also add value and make it a price product. And people we'll come to that. Right? And that is where innovation comes in. That is where entrepreneurship comes in. Fourth, which is gas, electricity, waste to energy. Right? After that, and anyway a waste to energy plant, along with energy there will be byproduct of compost. There are also standalone units of waste to compost. That's the fourth. Compost. And then which is basically feed the trees. Right? So first, don't waste. Second, feed humans. Third, feed animals. Fourth, industrial energy. Fifth, compost, feed the trees. And the last, least preferred method is send it to the landfill. Because the GHG emissions from food waste in landfills is very high. So now we'll just look at some examples. How can we reduce food waste at source? So these are just some ideas I've put. I would want to hear more ideas from you. So at the residential level, of course, consumer awareness. All of you are now aware. You will go talk to 5 more people and say, don't waste food. Take only as much as you can eat. You can take second servings, third servings, but take small servings maybe. Planned shopping and meal prep. When we go to shop, if we don't have a plan, we end up buying a lot more of things. Especially in my house. My husband goes out and he buys like 5 kgs of fruits together because he doesn't want to go out for another 7 days. But that doesn't work. Right? So you might need to make more, and it's very easy now with our local markets. There is also of course the retailers that you can get online, but I would still say local market and close smaller food loops are what actually make an impact towards food system transformation as well. And donate at your household level. Apart from this, is there anything else that you think we can do to reduce food waste at source in the residential level? There can be many things. Awareness, consumer awareness is one big thing.
At home level also we can segregate the waste so that we can actually produce something out of it. For example, the fertilizers or manures are used from organic waste. We can do that also.
Yes.
And it does not take that much of energy or technology. We can even decompose it in a pit or in a bucket something and produce organic manure or something.
Absolutely, absolutely. But here what I'm talking about is don't waste. This is that slide. How do you reduce the waste happening? Now, I mean, there is waste, of course. You can't give it to anybody. If you can compost it, use it in your own gardens. That's the best way. There are so many recipes available. You know, especially I come from West Bengal. Okay, so in West Bengal, after the partition, what happened is people had very little. So the recipe, especially of so my family, we come from the Bangladesh side. So there are many recipes. There like dried fish. There are vegetables with peels because people had so less, they didn't waste. You make achars, you make puree, you make paste, you make jams so that you can keep it longer. So there are many ways, and these are all ways that we can think of in our own lives where we reduce the waste, that food waste that we are generating. At the bulk level, what can we do? So very interestingly, we had a workshop a few months back where we interacted with the Horeca segment. There are so many innovative things that came up. One, as I mentioned, there are chefs who are coming up with newer recipes, you know, and there are also these competitions that they're taking part of, and then there are also kind of leveraging and showcasing those recipes so that there's larger scale up. Second, something very interesting, at weddings there is a lot of food waste that is there because nobody will tell that you don't take too much because it's an honor thing. हमारे घर आए हैं आप और खाइए और लीजिए चाहे. And then there's a huge amount of waste. What one caterer told us is, if you increase the number of lines, एक टेबल की जगह आप 4 टेबल लगा दो, then people take less because human mind thinks अब जाके ले लिया दोबारा we have to stand in line again, that thing, heavy plates, wedding wear, all of that, we will go, let's take ताकि दोबारा ना जाना पड़े, एक ही बारी ले लेते हैं, and then it's wasted. Make it easy to access. People can go multiple times, then the waste goes down, which I thought was very interesting. So there are many of these little practices. Restaurants and hotels should actually encourage people, if you can't finish, pack कर लीजिए, हम pack कर दें आपके लिए. You should, that call should come from there, that please pack it and take it home with you. There are countries who have reduced serve sizes. Now in India that might not work, right? I'm going to a restaurant to pay for a dish and you give me this much, I will have an issue, right? So maybe there can be something like 3 servings, like in the one plate is 250 rupees, but we'll get it 3 times. जितना खा सकते हैं खाइए आप, उतना ही देंगे, but 3 बारी में देंगे, you know? If restaurants start introducing kid plates, child meals, because many times when you travel with kids, they can't eat a full plate, and the parents are also ordering something else, so that plate is then wasted. If you have mini meals, kid meals, you know that you can work. Half plate, quarter plate ordering should be a norm. I mean, it should be more adopted, right? So there are all of these and more that can be done towards reducing waste at source. And of course, now we come to food donation. So food donation is something that is also in the Indian culture thought of something that is very pious to do. It's a good thing to do. So people do it. FSSAI has created the Indian Food Sharing Alliance, which is a network of enabling partners who donate food, and then there are recovery agencies who take it and then they distribute it. So there is this network that is there. But there are many challenges that people face in terms of policy, because there are 3 key policy asks which, if there were, food donation would have improved. One is labeling. For packaged food, there is something called a use by or expiry date that's there on the package. Earlier, it was called best before. Like when we were growing up, there was best before. Okay. So what's the difference between best before and use by?
Best before, like अगर हम उसके बाद भी वो consume करेंगे, उसके harmful effects नहीं होंगे. Use by, like you have to use it by that day.
Right? One is on safety and one you feel is on quality, right? Biscuit packet may be less crisp, थोड़ा soggy हो जाएगा, but खाने से पेट खराब नहीं होगा. It will not affect your health. But as soon as you put use by, a normal consumer like us will not eat it, na? Or will not give it to our kids. We will think twice. And a huge amount of food is wasted. In India, what has happened is, because of the labeling that came in 2022, many companies, there isn't a very scientific way for most packaged food to understand when will it go bad. That shelf life analysis of each food product, because even if you look at one company's biscuits, there is pista, there is cashew, there is butter, there is something. For each it will be very, very different. Millions of dollars of research will have to go in if you want to find that exact date, which no company has done. So they have just exchanged their best before into use by. What has that done? That has reduced shelf lives further and food waste is increasing, and nobody can donate food that is expired, right? How can you do that? It's not good enough for you, it's good enough for somebody who is poorer than you. Of course not. What could have been done? See, what UK has done is very interesting. They have a dual labeling. They have both. Okay? They have safety based and quality based labeling. So food may not be sold or donated past the safety date. You do not sell or donate unsafe food. But food past their best before date, maybe. Somebody who doesn't have anything to eat will be okay with a soggy packet of biscuits rather than nothing. Right? So this is a policy ask. Now this is something that seems to be a long-term ask, honestly, because it was a very recent change. So now to change it back is going to be another. Second is, there is no tax incentive to food donation. And here we are talking about bulk donation, right? Not our household. So like companies and industries and all of those. So there is no tax incentive. Which means, so for example, under the GST rule, a processed food company gets input credit once they sell the food. So that the tax that they've paid on the ingredients, the inputs that they use, and then they're also paying tax later, right? So then that they get an input credit. But if they donate that food instead of selling it, they get nothing. So then that's a lack of incentive, one. So another example is, what have other countries done? Colombia in 2016, in a tax reform, they confirmed that donors may claim a tax credit of up to 25% of the value of donations made to non-profit entities. So if such sort of regulations and incentives were brought in, then bulk donation would increase. And the third, which is the biggest hindrance to food donation right now, is there is a lack. Who is liable if something goes wrong? I am a company, I have donated food. Now I have given it to her to store, and then she will feed it to some other people. Now I have donated food. What if her storage is not good enough and the food goes bad there, and then you fall sick? Who's responsible, her or me? Me. Is what people think. Then why will I? And health, food safety and health is of the utmost importance. Nobody will want to take any risk on that. Right? So Argentina amended its food donation law in 2018 to include a new liability protection clause which extends to food donors and recovery agents that receive and equitable distribute free donations of food to the needy. So Argentina has done it. So if there's a good Samaritan law in India, that to the best of my knowledge I have donated safe food and I am kind of protected there, then that might give a safety aspect. But again, from the government's perspective, it's a very difficult line to tread. You have to also make sure that, like, what will be the checks and balances in place to ensure that the safety of that product is maintained and then there are no health issues. So there are certain enabling conditions that other countries are adopting. Hopefully in India also, with a little bit more work, we will be able to adopt it, and then donation might increase. So now reuse as animal feed, which I said, animal feed There are a lot of startups. I have only taken the example of WasteLink because it has recently raised 10 crores in seed funding. 10 crores. And what is their business model? Okay, so before we come to this, there is a law that all bulk food waste generators in India are responsible for their own waste management. Okay, so they have to make sure, like the municipality is not responsible for their bulk waste. They have to be responsible. They have to have tie-ups. So what has this company done? They're going and buying waste from bulk generators. Okay, they're asking them to do some sorting, grading, or whatever, and then they're taking the kind of food that they need, and they're buying waste from FPOs, farms. They're buying through the supply chain and from bakery manufacturers, because the kind of product that they are working, they think that the bakery wastes are more suitable. Then they are processing it scientifically into high value meals. So there's protein, I think they're doing energy and fat, and they're creating ingredients. They're not creating the finished animal feed product. They're creating feed ingredients, and then they're selling it to the people who are manufacturing animal feed. And this business model, this has allowed them, and see, these are the SDGs they're impacting. 11. So they're leading to sustainable cities and communities. Why? Because they're buying the waste from bulk generators, which if somebody throws it on the road, there's slurry going down the drain, food. If you see outside restaurants, you'll see yellow curry and all of that, right? And they're reducing waste going into the landfills, so they're making the city cleaner. They're hitting responsible consumption and production, and also climate action. And they have managed to feed 20,000 animals so far through 4,000 tons of food waste. They've processed 4,000 tons. And if this waste had gone into landfills, it would have led to 5,000 tons of GHG emissions. So this is one example. There is also another called Loop Feed, who are only making fish feed. Okay? That is also a very, very successful case study. And there are many, many examples around this. So it is actually, it's a for-profit. It's not an NGO, it's not like doing only social work. It's a for-profit company which is also helping the environment and helping sustainability, right? Now the next in the pyramid, waste to energy. Now this is the most crowded segment. There are hundreds of players who have come up with various sizes of waste to energy, food waste to energy equipment. There are ones that you can put in your house. There are ones you can put in your residential colony. There are industrial level ones which are put by bulk generators. There are also mid-level ones that are put in hotels, HoReCa segment, because of that law that they have to be. So, for example, this jug by Everest. So they take food waste, they then clean it, then they put it into the machine, and then the byproducts are both, one is compost as well as gas. Then there's energy bin by Xeon. There are several, okay, these are just illustrative examples. Bovenpalli recently in Telangana, it's a mandi, it's a market who have put up their own waste to energy plant, and in fact recently the Prime Minister also spoke about it during his Mann Ki Baat. So 10 tons of waste is generated per day in this mandi, and this is all vegetable waste. And if it was sent to the landfill, then over 6,000 kg of carbon dioxide would have been produced per year. But now that they have done it, 500 units of electricity is being produced and 30 kg of biofuel is being produced. And this electricity is then used to light up the street lights. Within the mandi, the shops are lit by this. They are also running the water supply network. So it has become a cyclical model. Whatever they are wasting in that mandi is also generating the electricity for that mandi, and it's a complete cyclical loop. So this is something that can be very easily done across the agricultural markets in India, right? Because every horticultural mandi will have significant levels of food waste. So this can easily be done. Please stop me if there are any questions. Yeah? Now food waste to compost, I haven't even put details here, I've just named companies. I mean, there are hundreds of them that are working on food waste to compost, right? There is Swaha. Swaha in fact works in Indore, which is a city that we are also looking at. As you know, Indore is one of the cleanest cities, it wins the award every year. So Indore municipality has done a tie-up with Swaha, where Swaha is responsible to collect all bulk food waste that is generated there. So they take the waste, they turn it into compost, and they go give it to the municipality, that compost, which is then put in the gardens and everywhere. So it's a full cyclical model that they have also put. There's Noble State, there's Waste is Gold Technologies, Van Solar Power, EGS, Unify, or several others. This is an example of how people are working towards reducing waste without even realizing it. So Bastar Se Bazaar Tak is a small company, it's a startup which is now a company, which works in the Bastar region of Chhattisgarh, which is a tribal area, and they work with custard apples. So if you know custard apple has a shelf life of 2 to 3 days. It is very perishable, which is why even if you put it in the cold store, it doesn't work. So what they have started is, they created a livelihood model where the tribal women, they trained on which is the right time to pluck the custard apple, because if you pluck it too unripe, it doesn't ripen. If you pluck it too ripe in one day, it bursts open. So they did the good agricultural practices, they did the training, they understood, they taught them how to sort and grade it, they made sure there is market linkage, and they also helped them put up a processing unit, which then increases shelf life of the custard apple into paste. And custard apple is now the flavor is very in. All of these ice cream companies like Naturals and others, the Sitafal flavor is something that is gaining more. And there are so many ways to use, why just custard apple, plum, cherry, all of these things that take, if you can't have it fresh, introduce it in juices and in other flavors. These are all our indigenous flavors, and also custard apple is very high in micronutrients. So it is good for you. So they were working on this, right? They didn't even realize. So until we start, and they got a lot, so I will share the slides. So they raised 40,000 grant from Tata Social Enterprise Challenge. They got a $50,000 loan from Upaya Social Ventures. They are now in touch with 1,200 farmers through 12 self-help groups. They're also looking at promoting organic farming. Then these custard apples are also organic and they get a value add. They have created 300 jobs. All of those things that they have done, they were hitting the other SDGs, but they didn't realize that they were also working towards reducing waste, because had they not done this, all of this custard apple would have been wasted. Does custard apple come to Kashmir mandis? Yes, it comes to Delhi also. But if you, like I have been to Madhya Pradesh and Ashram, if you see the amount that is produced and the amount that comes in, around 80% of custard apple is wasted. That's the level of wastage that's there. So they didn't think of it, that they're working towards reducing waste, but they are. So there are a lot more companies like this also who are working towards reducing waste, not as their primary goal, but as secondary. I think my presentation is still here, but I would just like to say a few more points. Go back to the pyramid. So if we think about entrepreneurship, these are just the big buckets. Each of these also need feeder equipment. If you just do a quick Google about the food waste startups in India, you will get so many hits about people that are coming up with squeezers, shredders, things that feed into then reducing waste, right? So you could also work on those segments. There are so many examples of also working towards reducing food loss. I have only talked about waste here, but there are so many other technologies that are working towards reducing food loss. One of the very interesting ones that I recently got to know, Green Pod's lab, they have created this sachet of bioactive ingredients, which if you put in a crate of horticulture, fruit or vegetable, it increases the shelf life by 3 to 7 days. So there are a lot more ways, that people are innovating. There are these small dryers that people have put on farm. Then there are solar powered cold stores, of course, better ways of storaging, moisture meters that you can put inside your storage units to measure labs, measure the moisture losses, and then understand if food is going bad, and then you take it out. So there are a lot more other ways. And again, I would want to hit back, because our topic is also linked to sustainable development goals. Reducing food loss and food waste. The number of SDGs it will help you meet. No other single intervention will be able to hit that many. So I would end my lecture with that, and I'm happy to take as many questions as you want. Yes, please.
So I have a question. When you just talked about the food waste pyramid, right? At last we could see that we should at last go for the insulation, or we should go for the landfill or insulation, right? But when it comes to, it is a very practical question that I have witnessed somewhere, since I have been also part of MNC, I have worked there and I have seen there that they create not in hundreds but thousands of tons of waste, and they directly go into the incinerators. But when they are investing such on the advancement of the technology, isn't there any law and regulation? Because I as a common person did not go to that MNC and tell them you have to follow certain things. You should actually look upon composting, or you should look upon going for something like manure creation from your, since this is from the food background, right? So why do they directly go to incineration, not to composting or making or converting them into the manures? Are not there any regulations so that they which can be applied to the MNCs?
So there aren't regulations right now that forces anybody to do anything. Second is also a lot of these MNCs, the food is wasted because of the labeling. So for example, a cornflakes company, usually, I'm not naming any company, like a breakfast cereal company would kind of put a date on their product use by, which is actually 2 months before their actual use by, because they also have to go into all of these retail stores. They're responsible for picking up all of their unsold cartons. And then what do? They usually feed it to animals, like stray animals, but it's not bad food. So similarly, and also lack of awareness. So yes, they should first think of how to donate it for human consumption. Then they should definitely follow this pyramid. Then they should see how can they convert it to animal feed. If not, is there any way for any industrial use? And the last resort should be landfill. But you see, there has to be an awareness around this. If it is not hitting their economics, for an MNC, they may not think of it in too much detail until there is a bigger law. And so just like on plastic use, there are laws in place now. There are guidelines. We are hopeful that within a few years it will be around waste as well. Anything else?
Any other participants? Maria?
I will leave my contact also, so in case any of you later also want to be in touch. There's my email ID.
Ma'am, can I ask?
Of course.
Ma'am, actually, I recently read an article about this, and they actually distinguish between food waste and food losses. And when we talk about developing and developed countries, there is food waste, like you said, at consumer level, right? But India is a developing country, right? And so we have most of the waste that we talk about is food losses, actually. Pre and post-harvest losses in bad agriculture. So how far can we go in drawing that line between food losses and food waste in developing countries like India? Because like you talked about, for example, custard apples, right? Again, it's not a food waste.
No, it's
more
not.
of a food
It's
loss,
loss.
right?
Yeah, custard apple example was loss.
Yeah. So how far can we go in drawing that line or distinguishing between food losses and food waste in a country like India?
See, we can definitely draw a line because the definition is quite clear. What you're saying is, I think what you're trying to say is waste is not that big of a problem in developing countries. Is that what you're saying? Right? But how do you know that? There has been no study, no measurement, nobody. why do we know the figures on losses? There has been a national level government data. Has anybody looked at waste? Is there any data? If there is any data that shows that waste is not that big of a problem in India, we'll stop talking about it. But that cannot be the case because
That's not actually what I'm trying to say. Obviously, for waste is a problem, especially as a Kashmiri, I can tell you we have Wazwan, right? We have wedding feasts, and there's a lot of waste. What I'm trying to say is that most of the examples that you gave in your presentation as well, most of those examples were definitely from food losses, like there was like transportation problems or supply chain.
no, only the Bastar se Bazaar tak example is loss. So if you see all of these in that, so this is directly waste. They are looking at food waste not from, so what they are taking from farms is loss, but they are also main ingredient they are taking is from the bakeries. Okay, this is just one slide. If you go to their website, you will see they're mainly taking from bakeries. So leftover batter, old bread. Globally, microbreweries waste a huge amount of grains that is being used to make bread. They are working on waste byproducts. From that waste, they are creating feed. Because anyway, fruits and vegetables don't go into animal feed anyway, right? So they are looking at waste. Then the ones that I'm talking about waste to energy are clearly waste to energy. The ones that are waste to compost are also food waste. So what I'm saying is there is a lot more opportunity there's a lot being done in loss, but there's a lot of opportunity in waste.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Huh? Can somebody tell me what is the most wasted food item globally? Just take a guess. It's bread. Bread is the most wasted item globally. It's stale, they throw it away. Little hard, they throw it away. Most of the cooked rice, if you throw away, it is a huge source of GHG emissions. Right? And also rice, both sides. Rice is also a very water intensive product. So you're taking up all of these inputs also to grow it, and then you're wasting it. So you're wasting those inputs. Anything else? No? Alright, great. Thank you. It was lovely interacting with you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for such a nice lecture. Now, I request myself to present you a memento. Photo उठा रहे?
Thank you so much.
So now we will be proceeding for lunch. And one more thing, post lunch we'll be distributing the forms. You have to fill that because your certificates will be generated by Ministry of MSME, Government of India. So it will be labeled by them. So for that you need to fill up form. Okay? So if you submit it today only, so that we can upload it, because we have to upload huge information on portal, then the certificates get generated through that, so that you can get certificates on the last day. Number one. Number two, I am planning to prepare a small booklet for this, so that we can at least come to know that what has happened and what we can do. So I have made 25 topics. So this will be distributed to, one will be distributed to each participant. You have to submit a report of only 500 words only. Like for example, to one student I'll give SDG 1, what actually it is, how we can achieve it, SDG 2, so like that, or what is circular economic approach, how we can achieve this, what are the problems on our side. So only 500 words, so that, but this needs to be submitted tomorrow evening, because we have to send it for compilation, and I want it to be released on the last day by Honorable Vice Chancellor. So your names will be written over there on each topic which you will be submitting, so then one copy will be distributed to each student. So that's what I want. So I hope you will cooperate, right? So you will have to work, but I want it by tomorrow evening only, so that we can send it for publication and designing, right? Okay, thank you so much.